The observation deck of Sunspire Academy hung suspended in the velvet silence of the Andromeda expanse, a crystalline spire orbiting the gas giant Viridian Prime. Inside, cadets from 57 species watched in hushed awe as the final trial of the Interstellar Cadet Gauntlet unfolded below, on Xylos 9, the galaxy's most infamous death world. Lava rivers carved through jungles of razor vines, skies crackled with perpetual lightning, gravity fluctuated without warning. And the native fauna? Each predator was a biomechanical nightmare evolved to kill gods, yet, for the first time in Sunspire's 3,000-year history, only one cadet remained on the surface, and he wasn't even wearing a survival suit. Lieutenant Kale Vorin of the Zenthari Dominion, tall, silver-scaled and genetically enhanced for tactical brilliance, leaned against the transparasteel, mandibles clenched. "This is absurd," he muttered. The human didn't even pass the psych eval. They said he had excessive emotional volatility and questionable regard for protocol. Master Instructor Thalcor, a four-armed elder of the crystalline Merathi, didn't look away from the main holodisplay. And yet, he is the only one who hasn't been extracted, neutralized, or devoured. On screen, the lone figure moved through a sulfur marsh like a ghost. Cadet Elias Rook, human, age 22, origin, Earth, Sol system, classified as Tier 9 death world by the Galactic Concord due to its unstable biosphere, violent weather cycles, and apex predator density exceeding survivability thresholds. The Concord had long assumed Earth was a backwater. They were wrong. Rook wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was fishing. With a sharpened bone spear and a vine noose, he'd just lured a six-legged acid spitter into a sinkhole, then used its carcass to bait a sky serpent twice the size of a dropship. When the serpent struck, Rook leapt onto its back, drove a shard of obsidian into its neural cluster, and rode it like a comet through a storm of razor-winged shriekers, using their own flock as a living shield. "He's not surviving," whispered Cadet Lyra of the aquatic Veln, her gills flaring in disbelief. "He's orchestrating." Back on Xylos 9, Rook dropped from the dying serpent into a cave system humming with geothermal energy. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with ash and blood, not all of it his own. He pulled a cracked datapad from his belt, its screen flickering with a looping message from Sunspire Command. "Cadet Rook, your team is MIA. Extraction impossible. Survive 72 hours. Do not engage Tier 5 fauna," he snorted. "Yeah, right. 3 hours ago, his squad, 2 Zenthari, a Merathi, and a drone-assisted Glimmerkin had been ambushed by a void maw, a semi-sentient predator that phased through rock and consumed electromagnetic fields. Only Rook had escaped, not by fleeing but by overloading his comms unit and luring the beast into a magnetic storm. Now, deep in the caves, he found them, his squad alive, but trapped in a stasis web spun by Xylosian silk spiders. The webs dampened neural signals, rendering them invisible to scanners. To the Academy, they were dead. But Rook remembered something his drill sergeant on Earth had barked during jungle survival training. "If you can't see the enemy, make 'em see you." He didn't have explosives, no plasma cutters, but he did have a half-charged power cell, a broken medkit, and the fermented nectar of a Xylosian sky bloom he'd collected earlier, highly volatile when mixed with ionized sulfur. He worked fast, rigged the power cell to pulse at resonant frequency, poured the nectar into the web's anchor points. Then, with a grin that would have terrified his instructors, he slapped a crude timer made from spider leg gears and whispered, "Hope you like fireworks." The explosion didn't just free his squad, it triggered a cave-in that buried 3 hunting packs of rock trolls. When the dust settled, Rook dragged his unconscious teammates into a thermal vent, wrapped them in heat-reflective moss, and used his own body heat to stabilize their core temperatures. For 12 hours he stayed awake, sharpening spears, setting traps, and humming an old Earth folk song, the Ballad of Blackjack Malone, to keep his mind sharp. Above, in the Academy, silence reigned. The cadets watched the live feed, now restored, as Rook, against all logic, carried his entire squad up a sheer cliff face during a gravity surge. Using vines, teamwork, and sheer stubbornness, he's... "Singing?" Lyra asked, stunned. "He's maintaining morale," Thalcor said softly. A tactic the Concord dismissed as biologically inefficient. Yet here it is, keeping 4 near-dead cadets conscious long enough to climb. Kyle Vorin finally spoke, voice low. They say humans evolved on a planet where 90% of species wanted to kill them. That their ancestors fought ice ages, plagues, and each other, and still built cities that touched the sky. And they never stopped fighting, Thalcor added. Not for conquest, not for glory, but because leaving someone behind is worse than death to them. On Xylos 9, dawn broke, a violent crimson sunrise that set the jungle ablaze with light. Rook stood at the extraction zone, his squad leaning on him, battered but alive. The Sunspire shuttle descended, its engines whining against the planet's turbulent atmosphere. But as the ramp lowered, Rook didn't board. He turned back toward the jungle. "Rook, what are you doing?" The pilot's voice crackled. "One of the silk spiders got caught in the blast," he said, pointing to a massive injured arachnid thrashing near the cliff edge. "It's suffering, and it saved my squad by weaving that web thick enough to shield them from the Maw's scans." "You're helping a predator?" Kale's voice came through the comm, disbelief laced with awe. Rook shrugged. "It's just a creature trying to survive. Like us." He spent 20 minutes stabilizing the spider's wound with resin and moss, then coaxed it into a safe crevice. Only then did he step onto the shuttle. As the ship ascended, the cadets of Sunspire Academy rose to their feet, not in salute, but in something older, deeper. Respect. In the debriefing chamber, High Chancellor Vela addressed the assembled instructors. "We designed Xylos 9 to test logic, strength, and tactical precision. We never accounted for compassion as a survival trait." Thalcor folded his crystalline limbs. "Perhaps that is why humanity was misclassified. We saw their planet as a death world, but to them, it was a training ground." Later, in the cadet lounge, Kale approached Rook, who was quietly eating nutrient paste and sketching constellations in a worn notebook. "You carried 3 beings heavier than you up a cliff during a gravity storm," Kyle said. "Why?" Rook looked up, eyes tired but bright. "Because they were my team. And on Earth, we've got a saying, no one gets left behind even if the world's trying to kill you." Kyle hesitated. "The conquered believes humanity is chaotic, unpredictable, dangerous," Rook smiled. "Yes, and that's why you'll never beat us." That night, the Sunspire archives were updated. Under Xylos 9 survival records, a new entry was added. Cadet Elias Rook, human, Sol 3. Survival duration, 78 hours team recovery, 100% notable actions, neutralized 12. Tier 4 5 threats, repurposed native flora-fauna for defense and medicine, demonstrated advanced empathy-based leadership, and rescued a hostile native organism. Final assessment. The eternal Deathworlder, unbroken by hell, unmoved by fear, and utterly, terrifyingly human. And far away, on a blue-green planet called Earth, children still played war in the snow, climbed trees in monsoons, and dreamed of stars. Not because they were safe, but because they had never known anything else. They were born on a death world and they were just getting started.